In the concrete jumble of New York City, one man defied every expectation. He walked out of courtroom after courtroom, earning him the legendary moniker, the Teflon Don, John Gotti. For years, he was untouchable. The media loved him, the public was fascinated by him, and the FBI, well, the FBI hated him. He flaunted his wealth, his power, and his connections, turning the traditional omerta of the Mafia on its head. But behind the dazzling suits and the public charisma lay a chilling ruthlessness, a trail of bodies, and a relentless ambition that would ultimately prove to be his greatest undoing. How did a street kid from the Bronx become the most famous mob boss in modern American history? What made him so invincible in court? And what hidden flaw finally brought down the man they called Teflon? Before he was a king, he was just another face in a tough neighborhood, learning the ropes in the shadowy world of New York's working-class streets. John Joseph Gotti Jr. was born in 1940 in the Bronx, New York, one of 13 children to poor Italian immigrant parents. Life was hard, money was scarce, and opportunities were even scarcer. For boys like Gotti, the streets offered a quicker path to respect and riches than school ever could. He quickly gravitated towards the street gangs that dominated his neighborhood, becoming a part of the Fulton Rockaway Boys crew. It was here he learned the brutal rules of the underworld, loyalty, respect, and violence as a means to an end. By his late teens, Gotti had dropped out of high school and was already making a name for himself as a tough, fearless street enforcer. He caught the eye of Carmine Fatico, a capo in the powerful Gambino crime family, who ran a lucrative crew in Ozone Park, Queens. Fatico saw potential in the young Gotti, his aggression, his street smarts, and his unwavering loyalty. Under Fatico's wing, Gotti began to move up the ranks, engaging in truck hijackings, illegal gambling, and loan sharking. He was learning the trade, moving from petty street crime to organized criminal enterprise. These were the foundational years, where Gotti honed his skills, built his reputation as a ruthless but reliable earner, and forged lifelong bonds with other ambitious young men who would one day form the core of his inner circle. The Gambino family was one of the 5 families dominating New York's underworld, and it was a powerful, established hierarchy. Gotti was a small fish in a very big pond. Yet, his ambition burned brighter than anyone else's. He wasn't content with being a soldier, he wanted to be a general. But how would he carve his path to the top in a world where loyalty was paramount and betrayal often meant death? Gotti's rise was marked by both brutal efficiency and a shocking willingness to challenge established order. He quickly became a made man in the Gambino family, a significant step that brought him closer to the inner workings of the organization. A personal tragedy would deeply scar him and reveal his vengeful side. In 1980, his 12-year-old son, Frank, was accidentally killed by a neighbor's car. Though the death was ruled an accident, the neighbor soon disappeared and was never seen again. The message was clear: Gotti protected his own, and vengeance was always served. This incident solidified his reputation as a man not to be crossed, even within his own circles. But his ambition was about to lead him to a far greater act of defiance. By the mid-1980s, the Gambino family was headed by Paul Castellano, a traditional boss who preferred quiet, white-collar crime and shunned the public spotlight. Gotti, however, despised Castellano's style, viewing him as weak and out of touch. Castellano had issued a strict order: no drug dealing by Gambino family members. Gotti, whose crew was heavily involved in narcotics, openly defied this edict. This was a direct challenge to the boss, a move unheard of in the Mafia without consequences. On December 16, 1985, Gotti orchestrated one of the most brazen acts in Mafia history. Paul Castellano was gunned down in front of Sparks Steakhouse in Midtown Manhattan, a clear, unmistakable power grab.
Paul Castellano has local and federal officials looking for the men who did it and for a motive.
The Mafia world was stunned. A sitting boss had been publicly executed without the approval of the commission. But Gotti, with his swift and brutal takeover, immediately became the new head of the Gambino family, ushering in a new, more flamboyant era of mob leadership. He had successfully gambled everything and won. He was now the most powerful mob boss in America, having bypassed decades of tradition and loyalty. But his newfound notoriety and his public persona would inevitably draw the kind of attention that the Mafia traditionally avoided at all costs. What price would he pay for stepping into the limelight? As boss of the Gambino family, John Gotti became a media sensation. He was dubbed the Dapper Don for his expensive taste in clothing and the Teflon Don for his uncanny ability to beat every criminal charge brought against him. Three major trials between 1986 and 1990 saw Gotti walk free, each acquittal further cementing his legendary status. The FBI was furious, feeling increasingly humiliated by his brazen public displays and his apparent invincibility. He lived a life of opulence and celebrity, openly conducting business in his social club in Ozone Park, the Rave Night Social Club, which became a de facto headquarters for the Gambino family. This was a stark departure from the secretive, understated ways of previous mob bosses. But beneath the glitz, the Gambino family under Gotti was as ruthless as ever. They controlled lucrative rackets across New York, construction, waste management, gambling, loan sharking, and more, generating hundreds of millions of dollars. His leadership was absolute, enforced by a brutal code of loyalty and an unquestioning expectation of obedience. Those who disobeyed, or showed any sign of weakness, quickly vanished or met a violent end. Fear was his ultimate currency. The FBI, however, was not giving up. They were determined to bring him down, and they learned from their past failures. They knew they couldn't beat Gotti in open court with traditional evidence. They needed a new strategy. They began to plant listening devices in Gotti's inner sanctum, the Rave Night Social Club. And what they heard there would expose the true nature of the Teflon Don and lay the groundwork for his eventual downfall. What shocking words would be captured that would unravel his entire empire? The FBI's surveillance paid off in a way they could only dream of. The hidden microphones inside the Rave Night Social Club captured Gotti speaking openly, brazenly, about his crimes, his rivals, and even the assassinations he had ordered. But the ultimate blow would come from within his own trusted circle. Gotti's underboss, Salvatore "Sammy the Bull" Gravano, a man who had been fiercely loyal and carried out countless hits for Gotti, was arrested alongside him in 1990. Facing a lengthy prison sentence, and realizing Gotti had spoken dismissively about him on tape, even implying Gotti would turn on him if necessary, Gravano made the unprecedented decision to cooperate with the government. This was the ultimate betrayal. Sammy Gravano, Sammy the Bull, testified against John Gotti. His testimony, combined with the devastating audio recordings from the Rave Night, was insurmountable. The Teflon had finally cracked. In 1992, John Gotti was convicted on 14 counts, including murder, conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, and obstruction of justice. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The Teflon Don had fallen. From the public glare of Manhattan courtrooms to the grim reality of a maximum security prison cell, Gotti's dramatic downfall sent shockwaves through the Mafia. He had broken every rule, but ultimately, it was his own hubris and the betrayal of his closest ally that brought him down. He died in federal prison in 2002 from throat cancer, his reign ending not with a bang, but with a quiet, ignominious whimper. The Teflon Don, once seemingly invincible, was finally silenced. But what enduring mark did he leave on the underworld and on American culture? John Gotti's legacy is complex and enduring. He redefined the image of the mob boss, transforming him from a shadowy figure into a celebrity gangster. He proved that the Mafia could be both terrifying and, to some, fascinating. His story continues to be told in countless books, documentaries, and films, cementing his place in true crime history. But his rise and fall also highlighted the changing landscape of organized crime and the increasing vulnerability of even the most powerful figures to modern law enforcement tactics and internal betrayals. The Teflon Don ultimately learned that in the unforgiving world of the Mafia, loyalty is a fleeting currency, and even the most impenetrable shield can be shattered from within. John Gotti's story is a powerful, brutal reminder that in the end, no one, not even a Teflon Don, truly walks away untouched.